unlocking the hidden forces shaping global power and India's role on the world stage. Welcome to Foresight Podcast. And today we explore these frontiers with Deepak Karajikar, sir, a leading voice in international relations and economic strategy. Deepak, sir, is a distinguished economist, author, strategic thinker, and whose insights span international relations, economic reforms, and India's strategic positioning. With expertise grounded in advisory role, management coaching, and through leadership, Deepak sir illuminates complex global trends with clarity and foresight. Recognized for his multidisciplinary approach, Deepak sir is a celebrated author for bringing economic, diplomatic, and strategic challenges to the forefront in the world order and helping us understand the pathways shaping our world today. Welcome, sir.
Thank you. Namaskar. My regards to all Foresight listeners. Thanks for being. I'm very happy to be here.
Okay, sir. So we will shoot with the questions. My first question is, sir, in Ghata Sutra, you depict early 20th century events like Titanic and Federal Reserve, creation of an orchestrated world order and entities. How might these clandestine plots have indirectly shaped British colonial rule in India, perhaps accelerating their resource extraction that fueled the empire's mammoth infrastructure, sir?
So, what happened in that last century when the British, a century before that, even British, French, Spanish, and Dutch, and to some extent Portuguese, they were ruling the world. They literally divided the whole world, as per like British came to India, Portuguese also came to India, went to some other South American things. Spain people went to South America. That time, America was struggling from the different warlords and making as a country, though it got independence in 1765.
Right.
Even the President Lincoln was struggling to unite them. They
Yes.
had constitution, everything. Because America is not a civilization, it is a colony. I mean, some people came together, they wrote a constitution, and everybody is following, and they are joining different parts of that entire continent in the United States of America as a country, which we call. But that country had huge resources, and that country had a bank which were printing their currency. So it's a country owned bank, like our Reserve Bank today. So what happened? Britishers and all those kingpins who were ruling the world. Bank of England was also that time a private bank. Bank of Deutsche Bank was a private bank. Bank of Netherlands was a private bank. All these European banks were managed by the private. I call them mafias. You can call them financial powers. They were managing those banks and they were managing currencies of this country. But they wanted America as a landmass, which is full of resources, and America as a currency, a dollar. That's why Michel Rothschild said in one of his statements that I want a control over a currency of a country and I care who is the president. And they were trying that from earlier century. After Lincoln, they tried that. During Lincoln, they tried that. Lincoln biggest fight, which is a civilized fight in their country, was between bankers and Lincoln. Lincoln always used to say, I have two armies to face. One is the army from south, which I am facing from front. But the army from New York, which is a banker army, which is coming on my back. So Lincoln said that several times. He got killed in that, all that. So they wanted America as a country to emerge because these five powers were spread all across the world, and they wanted, and there was definitely a sunset time comes for any empire, right? So they wanted a new country, a new place, a new currency called American dollar to control, and that's why the federal bank came. So in my book, what I written is a history from Titanic sinking to in my English version, I had come to Corona, and in my Marathi version, I came up to the Trump came in power first time. So Titanic it was an accident and all that we all know, and we have seen the romantic movie of Titanic also. But that is far from truth. Sometimes the reality is stranger than a fiction. Remember that always. Titanic definitely was sunk. It got hammered with the iceberg and all that. That story is still true. But who died in Titanic? That is more important. Three people died. One was the Benjamin Guggenheim, who was the mine king of United States in that country. The other one was John Jacob Astor, who was the person who established first trust in America, commercial trust. And the third was the founder of Macy's. So all these people, Isidore Strauss was his name. All these three people, they were against the centralized private bank, and that struggle was going there from 1865. And that struggle came to a peak as the next century came, 20th century, and then that struggle became a very big struggle in US, because US used to have, like India had some years before or even today, a mesh of huge, some lakhs of small banks, or the money credit societies, which were taking care of people's credit needs or people's parity, and they were spread all across United States. They wanted to make a centralized bank, and the currency of that bank should be printed by these kingpins. So they wanted that control over a currency, which these three people were denying. These three people, Isidore Strauss, John Jacob Astor, and Benjamin Guggenheim, were very strong people in American economic circles and economic canvas. Their word was the last word. So it is not a coincidence. It was a planned thing that they all died in Titanic. They all sunk with Titanic. These three people. And after that, this happened on 12th April 1912. And on 27 December 1912, the Federal Reserve Bank came into existence. And it was a December, that is Christmas time. Out of 50 senator and 50 congressmen, it was a joint session. Only 42 people were present, and half of them were drunk because it was a Christmas time. And in that people, they got this resolution passed of the Federal Reserve Bank, which is a private bank in United States, which print the currency. Most of the people, Indian people, don't understand this. They think Federal Reserve name means central bank. Indian Reserve Bank is controlled by government. Federal Reserve is a private bank. That's why if in our currency note, what is printed, that's a simple measure you can apply, that I, they say ना कि मैं धारक को 100 रुपए अदा करने का वचन देता हूँ. I promise to pay the bearer of this currency note. It's a promissory note. Nobody can deny it. If you deny, any shop owner deny the note, currency note, they will go in behind bar. But in American dollar, what they have printed, this is a legal tender for all debts, public and private. So it's a legal tender came by that revolution, a resolution of the Federal Bank establishment. So this has impacted entire world, not even the British colony in India, because that was the sign that the power shifting is happening from these five powers of the earlier century to United States of America. And Federal Bank came in existence in 1912, as I said, told you. After that, the Russian Revolution started because Tsar has 756 tons of gold, and they wanted to take the control of that gold. And who did the Russian Revolution? The communist, hardcore communist Lenin and and Trotsky, right? And they both were funded by whom? Rockefellers and Rothschilds. Rockefeller is a capitalist. Lenin is a communist. They are funding these communists to get the Tsar's power out, Tsar out of power, because they wanted the control on the gold of Russia. Russia was another strong country, which is a centralized, powered, and controlled by King Tsar. So they wanted to demolish that too. And followed by that, Russian Revolution. Russian Revolution happened in 1917. Before that, only First World War started in 1914. They wanted to, as these five powers were getting weakened, they wanted to correct the entire landmass of Europe. So both world wars were planned to do the correction on European landmass. Their ability of resources, their ability of natural resources and human resources, their ability of creating parity, all that got corrected. And that's why the other part of the world, other pole of the world, which we called later on, which happened in Cold War, Soviet Russia, they have demolished that Tsar regime also there. and that is how they tried to control the world. Then now they, after end of First World War, what they had a strong country called America with a currency in their hand. They were printing the currency. The Federal Reserve private bank was printing the currency, not the treasury. And they had Russia, another power, which the power of in communist hand. So America was a capitalist center and Russia was a communist center. See, these conflicts bring them money. Always remember, the
Yes.
conflicts are very important to do business.
Yes.
The wars brings you business. India, Pakistan are only two stupid countries. They fight the war on the basis of religion. The wars are fought for making profits and doing correction of land masses and resources, and that exactly they did in during Second World War. So this is how that Federal Reserve Bank has impacted the entire world. We got independence in 1947 after Second World War because Britishers' power started weakening after First World War. And
Yes.
that's how. But they wanted one pole in the tent, which was the United States of America, which they have control over their currency. That's the plan. That's the game plan they plotted and they succeeded.
That's an interesting perspective, sir. We don't generally hear about this, about colonialism, imperialism, and all these forces coming together.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. So my
Yes, sir.
next
Hmm.
question to you, sir. Your narrative in Ghata Sutra highlights empire collapses and the rise of superpowers. As India navigates US-China rivalry today, how does this syndicate thought of one world order risk sidelining the emerging powers like India, especially in tech and resource diplomacy?
See, this century after 9/11, what happened? The American empire, it started, collapsing.
Yes.
And see, a big boat takes time to sink. America was a very huge empire. It's still a huge empire. It's a number one superpower because it's a military might superpower. Though their currency has no value, to be honest. It is floated because of, people, you'll have question that why the dollar is so strong then. Because they link dollar to the biggest commodity in the world, which is oil. They have linked the dollar to oil and the gold, which are the biggest traded commodity of the world. You cannot buy oil without dollar. You cannot buy gold without dollar. So that's how it is connected to the biggest selling commodity. That's why dollar is floating. Otherwise, America's GDP is what 32 trillion, and they have debt of official debt of 135 trillion. But if you remember the investment in their treasury, then it is 38 trillion. So their debt is more than their GDP. Such country currency is floating high because they link that with the dollar game to gold and oil. Now, when the for this century started, 9/11 happened, America lost its control, as you know. And they have lost the position of mediator in the world. Earlier, America used to be a police of the world. Everybody will go to them, they will settle down. Now, because 9/11 happened on their land, the America control over the world got weakened. And that was a part of plan too. You think 9/11 is done by Bin Laden? No. He has nothing to do with 9/11.
Oh,
And my book explains that in different detail.
yes.
So why they wanted to again, they erect one empire, they demolish that, and then they ship the power center, they create power centers from 1979. When the Deng came in China started building their empire. America helped China a lot in building what China is today. Actually, China copied entire all technology things from US and made them of their own. A copy paste country it is, technology wise. But China became a sudden big might because of their hard work and because of their manufacturing capability. It has become a supply hub of the world. So, and America started losing control from 9/11. So, this century, first 25 years, if you have seen, till 1989 or 1990 to 2010, China's growth rate escalated to double digit. China is the only country in the world so far which has held its GDP growth in double digit for more than a decade. And that's why China became a rich country in a way because it became a global hub or supply chain center of the world. And now the again game started. But India also in last 10 years has created its position. Now, India and China are the two powers in the Asia which cannot really, in true terms, balance out the US mighty force, but they can create a different force there. And they ignored India. I'm not saying 100% I don't agree with that word ignore, because India is not still a very big country. You know what is the market cap of Wall Street today? Daily market cap? It runs into 160 trillion daily market cap. India's GDP is 4 trillion. So
Yes, sir.
we are a big country as far as the assets are concerned, but we are a small country as far as the parity or the money power. So America is still a might, China is second might. So India rise will balance out China tomorrow. So to that extent, they will feed India. That extent, the powers, the world powers through America or the kingpins, as I call in my Ghat Sutra, they will try to strengthen India to some extent, and they will keep the control in their hand. They will not India go, in their own speed. They will have some definitely, like Russian oil now they are playing the games with. They will have some tricks and trades, played all the time with India so that it doesn't become tomorrow China. And also at the same time, it will be a challenge to China. So
Yes.
it's an interesting chessboard they are playing in Asia now. And this chessboard, we are not pawn, but we are horse or we are some camel on the chessboard. And we will have to rise to the queen. We'll have to rise to the stature of queen, which China has risen today. So that is the chessboard which will, start playing in this Asia in the next 2 decades. And then it may settle down somewhere. But till that time, we have to be. So that's why our whatever India is trying to do, including Atmanirbhar or domestic dependent, try to understand one thing. India's population is 145 crore. That is 5 times of United States. And India has the parity. What is the parity of India? Domestic demand. When you call a demand supply in economics, the demand depends on two things: need and parity. India has one fifth parity of that of US. The population is 5 times and the parity is one fifth. So India will take time. So we need to have a consumption inside. People need to have parity to buy things which we are producing. And that's what Atmanirbhar or other programs will give in. It will take a decade to get that position. And that's why they will definitely, they are not ignoring India. They are watching India. Don't think that we are in they're on the ignorance canvas of those people. But they definitely know that China has gone so big. And now, with the BRICS and with the other alliances like China, Russia is practically dependent on China today. So, with those alliances, China is playing a very mighty game. China owns 56 ports of the world today. So all the maritime trade is through, most of the trade is through China owned ports. So China keep that, nuisance value of trade, nuisance value of supply chain, nuisance value of a power which is, can hold the world breath, can decide what will not be supplied to whom. The rare earth materials, API for medicines, China is holding that and it can use that as a weapon also. So for the counter that weapon, they are definitely helping India. Quad is one of the typical measure of that, but there are several other measures happening.
Talking about Quad and organizations like Quad and I2U2, do
Hmm.
you think, sir, India is exploiting its geopolitical sweet spot against China or
Hmm.
risking entanglement in the very power struggle, as you warn in your book Ghata Sutra as well?
Hmm. China is, please ask again, China is what you said? And I think our Prime Minister understand that very well. Emotional, we can think anything, but as the size of China, the supplyability of China, the internal economic, strength of China, their currency stability, their buying out, money they have, the parity China has as a country, we are nowhere near. It will take time for us to build ourselves. Of course, we will. I'm not use the word messing with China, but I will definitely say that we are keeping our respect with China. We are not dealing with China, giving all our prestige, which we did in last first. 6 centuries of our country, 6 decades of our country after independence. We surrendered to China practically. But now we are saying, look, we are not, as a small person telling a big dada that I'm not as big as you, but don't think I because you are big, I cannot be small. That kind of mind game we are playing with China. And with the America, now Trump came in power and putting his, जिसको कहते हैं ना कि he is trying to do that correction methods, na, a kind of shake up politics he is playing. With that, India is playing well with China. And India, China, if they come together, everybody says, but I don't think they are definite rivals. They will not be a alliance. India and Russia is an alliance that we know. But China, India cannot be alliance in near future. They will be rivals and they will try to, judge each other, keep judging each other and play the mind game of nuisance value and utility to each other. And that will go on. So we are not messing up. It's another chessboard between India and China, which is played very hard. Our prime minister went to a CEO conference, and what happened there. The Russian Supremo Putin took him in the car for 55 minutes to save his life because there was an assault on him planned. And if that would have happened in China, what would have happened to China? So China also got scared. This kind of play games will always play because our leader is strong. And I'm very thankful to God that we have a strong leader, which is at least looking in China straight into the eyes and telling, hey, you may be big, but I am also not small. And that is a very important stand. That's why he want to build the inherent capabilities after those Atmanirbhar and all those programs, because of that only. Because unless this country's manpower is engaged in manufacturing or farming or farm processing, this country will not have good parity. And China, if you ask me in the same breath, I will tell even if you have not asked me, China will implode when the politics will change, the global politics. See, China lost trust due to Corona of various countries. But India could not build the capability so fast so that they can, find India as an alternative for supply chain. We are still, struggling. We are just getting somehow better with the infrastructure and other sadak pani bijli things. So we will take time to build a rival competitor to China. But we will have other diplomatic methods. We will have something more like he started now semiconductor initiative. So those things might, because Taiwan is a good friend of us and those kind of rivalry politics may make our strength different in near future, but definitely not equal to China. But that game will go on for a couple of decades, as I believe. But China one day will definitely implode because all those world forces will not like China to be that empire, as they never liked US to be the single empire. They never liked these five powers to be the empires in the earlier century. Because unless there is a power balance, you cannot control the world. And for that one world order, that one world order will not be given to in China's hand for sure.
Yes, sir. Very rightly said that unipolar world order is not in favor of anyone, not
Correct.
just USA, but even for India. We don't
Correct.
want China at the top.
Correct.
Sir, coming to your critique on multinational organizations, you have critiqued in Vishwache Arth that
Hmm.
multinational organizations prioritize profits over national interests,
Correct.
influencing decisions in countries like India.
Hmm.
Foreign investments flooding sectors like agriculture and retail. How vulnerable is India's economy to these vigors, and what is your take on it? What reform should India take to overcome those?
See, India produces around 4.5 lakh unskilled or semi-skilled labor every month.
Yes, sir.
So for those empty hands, the only source of getting engaged is the manufacturing or farming. Though farming constitutes 11% in our GDP, the 61% population depends on farming. The manufacturing contributes 17% or 18% in our GDP. But 27% population is engaged in that. So whatever our 60% of GDP is services, but the population depend on that is hardly 20-22%. So this is a sheer imbalance which will keep our country, you know, which will not make our country strong. So unless ये श्रम शक्ति का देश है, this is a
Hmm.
country of, working people in India. Their DNA is to work hard and earn money. People are not fraud in India. The DNA is not like, create a share market, play satta. We are not that mentality people. We will not play those games. We will not be happy. We are the people who will work hard. And so that kind of DNA of this country. So for that, we need to bring a strong manufacturing line. We need to bring a strong agro processing line. We have a fertile land. It's a tropical weather country, and we are already a world food supply chain. We world food hub, though not manufacturing, but agriculture. Most of the things we are in number one and number two in the world. Most of the farm produces. So processing of that we should build. We should build manufacturing. Unless you build that, these multinational corporations, which are the arms of globalization tool, which I always say it's a fraudulent tool. Globalization they did not invent in 1991. It was going on from the Silk Route days. Java, Sumatra having all those, why Vasco da Gama came to India? For those spices, right? The spices, that means that the trade was on all the time. Routes were different. In one Silk Route was through Samarkand, and the other thing was a sea route. But they kept coming here because this country was producing something. So they need not to tell us the globalization thing. Globalization today is what? The economic geography is a globalization. Means what? Today you take out 100 big world powers. Out of that, 56 are the corporations and 44 are countries. If you compare their GDP with their revenues. So means 55 corporations are bigger than the countries
Yes, sir.
in the first 100 economies of the world, if you
Yes, sir.
compare the GDP and revenue of the company. So these corporations, they want to utilize all resources. They have created an economic geography in map of the world. Now the border doesn't matter. If an American MNC wants to do something in India, they can push the government to the corner and get it done what they want. Their trade agreements have become a different economic tools or war tools. Economic war is propagated, is fueled, and is propelled by these MNCs, which make your country in debt. So to avoid that, now to avoid that, you cannot keep using military, right? You have to play that game with the different tool, and the different tool is the Atmanirbhar. If you keep producing inside, you don't need these corporations. Like take example of big fours. The big four companies, they do. Now suddenly we have taken a decision that in our country that we will create domestic big four.
Hmm.
It will take time, but we have to start this process somewhere.
Yes.
We have to create manufacturing big zones. We have to create ACZs for APIs. We have to create manufacturing big, kind of manufacturing setups for a big companies in India like Kalyani. Bharat Forge is making Bofors gun now. Now they are making the other American gun too. So we will have to create that. That's why the deals what we have done in defense, the 71% will be manufactured in India. That kind of deals we have done. The purpose is that in another 2 decades, you will see India will be a big manufacturing hub, and that will accommodate India's workforce domestically. And you will see one day that people will not have a desire to go to foreign land, but work in India for India. That day is not far, but we all need to understand this is beyond politics. Unfortunately, in India, the politics takes over everything.
Yes, sir.
And I'm worried about people like you, means not you as a person, but the generation of you. When India will be 100-year old, you will be in 40s or 50s in your life. That time, the India which you will be experiencing will be a different, vibrant India. But for that, we have to work for another 23 years very hard to that goal. And that's what we are doing, I think. Geopolitics, we need a leader who can manage or manipulate geopolitics well, which we have our beloved Prime Minister today. Domestically, we have to work hard. There is no other shortcut for working hard. So domestically, we have to produce, domestically, we have to process, agro, and we will have to build our own capabilities. Because you cannot feed 145 crore people, from somebody else. We will have to feed them ourselves.
Yes, sir. So I think manufacturing is the key, that sector we are missing out on.
Yes.
Yes, sir. Sir, as the ICCR Finance Committee chairman,
Hmm.
we have seen India's cultural diplomacy evolve. How might have Ghata Sutra's lesson on deep state maneuvers inform India's soft power strategy? For example, say in countering narratives around Kashmir or Indo Pacific to build genuine multilateral alliances.
Correct. You see, soft power, there are a lot of powers you can fight against.
Mm.
One is a military power.
Mm.
The war definition has changed. War paradigms are shifted. War frameworks has gone. Now there will not be physical, very less physical war. This Ukraine stupid war will is going on not because they have a fighting instinct, but it is a geopolitical game. Somebody big person is playing with some other big person, and Ukraine is getting crushed in that. When they say now the two elephant fight, grass get crushed off. The grass has been unfortunately Ukraine. But there will not be such wars in future. The wars will be in the boardroom. The wars will be in the war room, which are non-military war rooms. And for that, see what India has to give it to world. Let us go to basic. We only have knowledge to give it to world. We were never a country which attack any country. We never had a, you know, ambition of becoming military might and then keep people in control. No, our biggest strength is our knowledge. Our biggest strength is our cultural thread. There are eight cultures got demolished. If you start counting from Mayan, Greek, Roman, Aztec, Mesopotamian, Egyptian, Persian, all these cultures are gone. But
Yes, sir.
Indian culture is still there because we are a civilization. And for a civilization, the natural power is the soft power. For a monopoly or for a kind of a corporation or for a kind of hegemony, the soft power doesn't exist because they all go with the hard power. But for a civilization which is running for thousands of years, soft power is the powerful tool. So in ICCR, what we did lot of try to do a lot of things. Like we have opened around 39 cultural centers in various embassies of the world, Indian embassies, where people can come and see the India's cultural side. Because no human in the world are war oriented. War mentality is in few people, and they make other people to work for them. But most of the people, human beings in the world, they like living a good life, and for that culture is the only solution. Like a blood in our body, the culture flows through the veins of the country, and India's cultural power is so powerful, and I experienced that several times. I mean, during my tenure there, our prime minister had kept one program called Next Gen, which is given for ICCR to handle. So Dr. Vinay Sahasrabudhe was chairman then, and we brought several countries, young leaders, which will be leader in their country after 10, 15 years. We invited them, the leader in brewing, and we took them all over India to various places and shown them the India's history and the cultural things and all that. It has a deep impact on their mind. When they become ruler of their country, they will look India from a different point of view, and that's a soft power penetration we have done. And I think that is very powerful because wars will come and go. What remains is the culture. And what remains is that affection of being a human being. And that is dependent not on that doesn't flow through the barrel of the gun. It flows through the ancient cultural ties or those kind of threats. So that's why soft power India has the biggest soft power strength in the world. The soft power parity India has is 100 and 1,000 times more than the world. China also has a soft power thing because China is also civilization. But China shifted its gear to communist and now to the complete capitalist communist country, which is a rare combination. Nobody can repeat China model in the world. But India has that soft power thing. So we should use, while we are using military power for defending ourselves, for winning people over, we need to use soft power.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So critiques of global conspiracies in Ghat Sutra often overlook the Global South Agency. How has India's recent G20 presidency exemplified resistance to Western dominated narratives, and what role could, could Arth Kranti play in empowering similar economic diplomacy?
See, Artha Kranti proposal was to have a taxless system.
Hmm.
Artha Kranti suggested to our beloved Prime Minister when we met him, I was there when we met him, and we suggested that have a country without any taxes, only have a custom duties or import duties because that is not for revenue, that is for regulating the imports. So we also suggested there should be a transaction tax to get revenue. And the more transaction will happen, transaction tax will grow. We have done even simulation for that. And there is a model, there is a bill ready, everything. So Artha Kranti was a model for the economic rejuvenation of India. What happened in India, to be honest, because of the cash-rich economy, the currency denomination got up and up to 2000 rupees note. The higher currency denomination always makes you a cash rich and it always keeps a transaction without any footprint because you give currency note to somebody and there is no footprint. But if it routed through bank, it keeps a footprint that who has given what. So there are some side effects of not having footprints, so terrorism, drug trafficking, child trafficking, all that happens. That doesn't happen. Nobody writes a check for a drug to somebody, no. They deal with cash. So cash-rich economy is very dangerous for a country's sovereignty and security. So when I say that global south is a concept came from India leading the small countries in the south. I mean, small and medium countries like Australia, New Zealand, I'm taking their name, all the SARC countries, all the South African countries, those and South American countries. The global South countries are not as mighty as US or China. Their ambitions are not to rule the world. They want to live a peaceful life. So for them, India can be a very good hope. India can be a leader. And if you have seen our Prime Minister just track down their 10 years foreign tours. He most of the time you will find is the first time any Indian Prime Minister has gone to some country like Ghana or some country in South America or South Africa. Why is that? Because we are trying to build. And China also spread their wing in entire world, but they spread the wing to grab the resources like these four empires did in earlier centuries. But we are going there to have relationship, interdependency, and a lifestyle which is interdependent to create that through soft power to the cultural mind. So most of the small countries, which will be too many after some, there are 200 plus countries in the world. And these mighty big powers, 4, 5, if you take, I understand their GDP is much more than their total GDP, but as a existence, as a mass existence, as a race existence, they constitute a lot in the world economy, world population. So India, Arthakranti and this cannot be directly connected. But if India becomes a country where the economic systems are very transparent, what I'm saying in Arthakranti in a different sense, we are making entire country a SEZ.
Okay.
And that politicians will never allow it to happen because their entire politics run on the cash economy.
Yes.
Any kind of person who gives an affidavit for any election, he spends at least 100 times more than that affidavit. He officially gives that I have spent this much money. If he's giving affidavit for 20 lakhs, he must be spending 10 crores in the election. That runs on the cash economy. So Arthagranthi, one of the proposal was to make this political economy very transparent and white instead of black. So that will become like, that's the example I'll give you. UPI. The moment we had, so one of the suggestion which Modi ji asked us when we presented Arthakranti, he said, what is the first step for Arthakranti? We said banking inclusion. He said, what do you mean? I said, there are no enough bank accounts. He said, what? This country is a 125 crore people country and there is no. I said, there may not be any bank account more than 6, 7 crore. He was not believing and then he inquired. He said, yes, you're right. The more banking economy came during Corona, and now the UPI transaction, we are wonderful in the world.
Yes, sir.
So we have got the transparency or a footprint of a transaction in the country. That's why even the yesterday Delhi Blambas, they already captured 4 people because traceability is very important. So, for these small countries in the world, in South America, be it in South Africa, be it in Down Under or SARC, India can become a role model for how to make economy very vital for people, very useful for people. Without any big guns, it can be a peace, it can lead to a peaceful life, and it can be just in time kind of thing. We don't need to earn money to threaten others, but we can all live peacefully together. From that point of view, the economic resolution is a model for them. UPI, everybody is copying now. They want this UPI. They are very confused. My American friend comes to India, they get very confused with the OTP business we do. And they think, what is this? We don't have. I mean, now they are technologically superior countries. They talk about AI, but the basic intelligence utilization is also not there, like India has.
Yes, sir.
So that is why I think we can be a role model for the entire world, leaving this, the warmonger mighty people aside. We can lead the entire world in global south and also small countries in the Europe. So India is the only hope. And I'm not saying because I'm Indian. I'm saying this because the geopolitics will turn to that direction one day, where we will be leading by example, because we have no history to attack anyone.
Yes, sir.
And but we have a capability of responding if somebody becomes nasty to us. So both the things are together, and that's a good role model. It is brewing. There will be so many difficulties. I'm not saying it will happen tomorrow, but our direction is right. So if direction is right, you will reach there one day, right?
Yes, sir. So, my last question to you is for the young IR enthusiast in India listening. If Ghata Sutra is a roadmap for global awareness, what one India specific lesson from colonial finance to modern FDI would you urge them to apply in building a self reliant Bharat?
See, self-reliant Bharat will come from a feeling of I can do it myself.
Hmm.
And a young generation has to have that feeling. They have to believe this country. What happened? See, your college days or your school days, if you remember, your entire history is wrongly written and you studied that history. So we think we have no virasat. कि हमारा कोई मतलब what अंग्रेज people did, they first attack our ancient culture. They said you have no culture. Because Churchill said, if you remember, that you are giving independence to these bastards. They don't understand how to rule. They don't know. They are just slaves. That's what he said. He is in some graveyard now, and India is the fourth number economy in the world. So these nonsense statements he made, English, British people did that to us. They played with our self prestige. They made our prestige like rotten. And I think the new generation, with the technological ability, with the technological, capabilities, they need to also run where from we came. And we were, in 1846, we were running, we had 24% of the world GDP was India's. So we are not a poor and some beggar country. They made us beggar, and we again rose like a phoenix, more than a phoenix. So we have definitely have a history of making a class, making a stature in the world. So young generation has to understand that yes, technologically we are great, but we need to understand history, our background, where from we came. Ghatsutra is written why? Because to just make you aware that to whom you think as a development, to whom you look up as the biggest idol countries to live, they are so, internally they are so nastily managed. They are managed with some illicit or malice intentions. So you should not go after them. The country here is the country for us to live. The Ghat Sutra makes you aware that how malice the world has become with this people policy. That's why Ghat Sutra will uh, make your belief go away on this stupid capitalism and communism and socialism. They all those three thieves went to the same place. America is example of capitalism. China is example of communism. Russia is example of socialism. But you see, America has 10% people holding 70% of wealth. China is 5% people holding 70% of wealth. Russia 3% people holding 70% of the wealth. These three people went to the same destination, and they taught us how to live. So that's why I'm trying to coin one word called familism, because I always think the family is a micro wheel of economy. एवरी ट्रांजैक्शन जब भी हमारा त्योहार है, जो भी हमारे डेज है, भाव भैया भैया दूज से लेकर रक्षाबंधन तक, इसमें एक फाइनेंशियल माइक्रो इकोनॉमिक एक्टिविटी है. Our lifestyle is twined with the interdependent financial activity. So we need to understand. So I'm writing a book on that familism right now, that concept. Familism is a word I'm coining. I'm not saying that's a scientific word. But to against these three, capitalism, communism, socialism, we have to show the economic way also, right? We can't say only philosophical way. We can't show only philosophical things in the past. So economically, how they will prosper together against their narrative and against their malice. We have to create our own, big line. You can't keep scratching their lines. We have to draw our line bigger than them. They automatically look small there. We don't have to get engaged in scratching their line. That's too much of effort. We have to draw our line with clarity, with a correct cultural canvas in mind. We should do our line, and I think we are trying to do that. We are trying to draw that line. So young generation has to get more and more aware of this. I'm very glad you are and Saurabh is doing this podcast because that should go to the young generation. They may not agree with 100%. That's okay. There is always a chance of debate. There is always a chance of exchanging thoughts. But the thought that they are great has to start going away now. It's enough.
Yes.
The thought that we are nobody, that has to go away now. Self insult and self low prestige is not the way to live in the world. So the young generation need to understand that we were always a rich country. We were never beggars. We had a rich culture and we have given help to the humanity of the world. And we were विश्व गुरु और भी होएंगे कि नहीं पता नहीं लेकिन हमारी वो क्षमता है
हाँ जी.
हम उस एबिलिटी को रखते हैं वो यंग जनरेशन को समझेगा वो सुधीन होगा ऐसे काइंड ऑफ पॉडकास्ट विल हेल्प देम टू मेक अंडरस्टैंड सो आई एम ग्रेटफुल टू यू आर डूइंग दिस थैंक यू
Thank you, sir. I think the message we can take from here is that we need to focus on self reliance, accepting and adopting our culture, moving away from the colonial mindset, and focusing on growing ourselves instead of showing anyone else down. So, I think that will help India grow better.
डेफिनेटली
Yes, sir. So, how have you managed to have so many career options? Like, you are an actor, you are with the government working, you are an author. How have you managed with all of that?
You can also do that. You have to manage time precisely. You need to know what you should not waste time in.
Uh,
The remaining time takes you to wherever you want.